So for some of you who don't know this mantra, I'm just going to put it on in 1 second. All right, so let's bring our hands either to the heart center or lightly resting on your thighs. And together join me, taking a breath in. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavid Tamastumavid Vishavahe. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And let's just sit here quietly. And inhale and open your eyes. I don't want to throw you guys off again. I just want to see if I can share my screen a different way. Let me see. Here we are. 1 second. Now I'll put it like this. All right. Thank you for your patience. So today we're going to just summarize what we have done in the last 10 or 9 sessions. So if we look here, just going over it sort of in a summary, when we look at the study of the Dasha Mahavidyas, so Dasha is 10, Mahavidyas are wisdom. So the Dasha Mahavidyas are the 10 wisdom goddesses found within Tantric Yoga. Once we started just opening that chapter and looking at it, we realized that it's part of the Sri Vidya path of Tantric Yoga. Now, I'm not sure if I really emphasized that enough, so I wanted to make sure I said it on our last day. So again, if this is something you want to delve deeper into, start looking at Sri Vidya and see what that means. When you start looking at Tantric Yoga, of course, that brings you to the whole idea of dualism and non-dualism. And this is important because that opens up the door to understanding Shiva and Prakriti, Purusha, Prakriti, Shakti, that whole open window of knowledge there. So that led us to understanding what is Mother Divine and how is she represented and what does she mean? She is all the diversity here in the world that we can see. So she's represented not only in form and name, but in sound, unmanifest sound. She's also represented in abstract concepts like time, energy, Maya. So that led us to a further exploration of what exactly is Prakriti within this tradition. So then we had the review of the evolutes or the tattvas. Then that led us to understanding mantra, that mantra is an integral part of Tantric Yoga. Not only its practice, but the philosophical foundation of it. When we say mantra, we're talking about sound vibrational fields. And that was when we were discussing how the pranava, Om, is the first prana, the first manifestation of Shakti within the universe, or within the creation, let's say, created universe. From there, from sound vibrational fields, we also saw that Shakti, the whole Shakti principle, can be represented in the abstract form of yantras, which are geometric forms. So then that led us to understanding that these geometric forms are the energetic fields and the wisdom of the Dasha Mahavidyas. And then yesterday, Annette brought up also the sacred forms that we find. So here, there's a ratio. It's called the golden ratio. I mean, there's another more mathematical way to say it, but it's 1.618. And this is a ratio, a spatial ratio. When this is, you find it in nature, in seashells, in the way like a fern unfolds and opens up. And the pyramids use the golden ratio, the Sri Yantra in the design of the triangles is according to this ratio. This is a very harmonizing spatial vibration that occurs naturally in nature, and which the wise people who made up the Sri Yantra, they didn't make it up, but they manifested it in two-dimensional and three-dimensional forms. This follows that pattern because, as Annette also was saying in part of her contribution yesterday, it harmonizes the inner and the outer vibrations. So we have the golden ratio that we find in the Sri Yantra. We also have just basic symbolism that is part of the Hindu tradition, yogic tradition, tantric tradition. We saw that when we were talking about the lotus petals. Remember yesterday we said that the lotus petals represent the unfoldment or unfolding of your consciousness. The Sri Yantra also represents the different chakras in the body, in the 9 circuits. So we have the 9 levels of consciousness, and then we have the 9 levels, or not levels, or let's just say the 9 chakras. The Kali Yantra, we saw that the 5 triangles in the middle of that yantra that are pointing downward represent the koshas, the yogic koshas of the body. So here we see a lot of different subtle energetics that are all represented in the Sri Yantra. And what's interesting is how you choose to meditate upon the Sri Yantra. Also, there are directions: up, down, across, inward, outward. The Sri Yantra, also, when we talk about the chakras, of course, we're talking about the Bija mantras. So if you've studied Hindu chakras, we understand from the bottom, Lam, Bum, Rum, Yum, Hum, Om, silent Om. So again, that's creating a sound vibrational field. These mantras serve to energize the yantra. And that's a very important part of using a yantra for meditation. It's in this tradition, the yantra, whether it's 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional, is inert until it is energized with a mantra. So if we're going to talk about mantras, of course, then we have to talk about Sanskrit. So yesterday, we very briefly touched upon the 10 prime Shakti Bija mantras. So let's talk a little bit more about Sanskrit now. We learned yesterday that the 16-petal circle in the Sri Yantra holds the 16 vowels of Sanskrit. The Sanskrit alphabet, when you start studying it, is based on naturally occurring sounds that the human body makes. And Sanskrit, and scholars of Sanskrit, the people who practice using Sanskrit in their mantra practice, they believe that the human body and the vibrations that occur here and the vibrations that are out there in the universe are one and the same and can harmonize together. Vowels are considered Shiva vibrations. Shiva, Purusha, is pure consciousness. It can stand alone by itself. So they represent being with a capital B, or consciousness. So those are the 16 vowels, okay? Now consonants are considered Shakti vibrations. Why? Because the consonants, they give direction, form, they can expand, they can contract that sound of the Shiva vowel. Ka is the first Shakti consonant, and it's a very important sound within Shakti Bija mantras. Ka is also often identified as a symbol for Prakriti. So when you delve into Sanskrit, you will find that each letter, each sound, each combination of sound has a gross and an abstract meaning and harmonizing vibration within your body and in the universe. So it's not like English where you just go A, B, C. What does A mean? We don't know. But I, I, U, ka, sha. All those have meaning and directional energy in Sanskrit. So we, I think Azadeh had the question once about what are Bija sounds. So Bija sounds are simple one-syllable sounds that hold all the energetics of combination or words. So it's a very intense energetic in one syllable. So you can look at the Bija mantras for chakras. For instance, we know that each chakra has a Bija mantra. Muladhara is Lam, but we also know that there are 4 petals around the representation of the Muladhara chakra, and each one of those petals has a Bija mantra. So it's another letter within the Sanskrit alphabet. So let's look then just at the relationship of these Bija chakra mantras and looking at your Shri Yantra. So maybe you have it in front of you, because remember we looked at how each chakra, each circle, as you either go inward or outward, represents a different chakra within the Shri Yantra. So at the let's start at the very middle. Look at the Bindu. So the Bindu, the sound is Aum, and that's the crown chakra. The inner downward facing triangle is the Ajna chakra, and that sound is Om. If you look at the 8 triangles now, making your way outward, that is Hum and represents the Vishuddhi chakra. The circle with 10 triangles is the Anahata chakra. Yam is the Bija mantra. The second set of 10 triangles going outward is Ram, the Manipura chakra. Then the 14 triangles at the most outside is Vam, Svadhisthana chakra, second chakra. And then the 8 lotus petals is the Muladhara chakra, and that has the sound Lam. So let's look at these sounds now from a viewpoint that Dr. Frowley in his book, Mantra Yoga and Primal Sound, he explains. So Ya from Yum is related to the air element. Okay, we know that, Anahata chakra, right? Ra, fire element, Manipura chakra. Va, water element, Svadhisthana. La, earth element, Muladhara. Ah, Ah is the ether element, Vishuddhi, with Ah or Ha, however you want to pronounce the H from whom. And then Om we've discussed in the first couple days. If you have any questions, you guys, just unmute yourself and go for it. All right, we know.
Hello, Corinne.
In our discussions in the past. Yes, Abbas?
Yeah, how are you? Isn't the
Go ahead.
Muladhara four lotus petals?
Yes. The Muladhara is 4
'cause you
lotus
said
petals,
8.
but in the Shri Yantra, it is represented by the 8 petals, because the Shri Yantra has 9 circuits including the 7 chakras with which to meditate in a directional flow, inward and outward. And
Oh, okay.
so the circle with the 8 petals is represented by the Muladhara.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And yep, and this also, there's some confusion here also when we think about this. The 16 petal circle
Mm-hmm.
is, when we think about the chakras, that's the Vishuddhi chakra with the 16 vowels, the 16 petals and 16 vowels.
Oh, okay. Okay. I get it.
Okay,
Okay.
but here in the Sri Yantra, it's also that. So I have a picture because I couldn't find a really good image. It was all too blurry, what I saw, showing 16 petals in the Sri Yantra. So I'm showing you the Vishuddhi chakra right now, but I'd like to look at the Sanskrit right now. So let me
Okay.
see if I can get my little pointer. Okay, so these are the vowels. So I'm starting at the top. The dot above each of the Sanskrit letters is an indication to add a sound. So it'd be ah or lam. That is within the Vishuddhi chakra. However, we don't want to pronounce the sound within the 16 petals of the yantra because we're just looking at the alphabet. So the top one would be ah, short ah, second ah, I, u, ra, ru, ra, rum. Okay, these, I'm sorry, I don't pronounce well. It's sort of like RRLL with a little oo at the end. These are pronounced in the top of the palate, but it isn't like a Spanish R that you roll. It's forcing the air between the tongue and the top palate to get a r sound, which I don't do. So r, l, this is a L, l sound, and then a r sound. A, I, O, ow. Here, the sound is So we do respect the dot on top, and the last one is ah. So when we come back, the background that I have on my video today with the mantra, I actually wrote in on the 16 petals, the Sanskrit vowels. And that was part of my meditation practice this morning. Just another way you can use it. Let's go on. These are 2 references, and some of them I think you might have seen before, but I do like the Sanskrit channel. The guy is brilliant. He does a very nice short video of the pronunciation of vowels, the Sanskrit vowels. And then I also like this other one too. This person gives a nice, it's actually a lady, she gives a very slow pronunciation and also the writing of the Sanskrit vowels. So you may want to take a look at that. So we know that bija mantras are not simply, they're intense sound forms. And when we think about Shakti mantras, they are sound forms that represent the 10 goddesses that we've been introduced to. So when we invoke this mantra, we are energizing that representation of the wisdom of that goddess. So Om is a Shakti mantra, represents the pranic energy. So that's the subtle energy, right? Hrim is solar energy. Krim, electric energy. So here you see that a lot, electric energy in the goddesses. That's the Vidyut energy, lightning. Power of fire, Hum. Stream, power to stabilize. Remember, I think it was Bagalamukhi goddess. She has the power to paralyze and to then bring things to a stop, stabilize, and then go forward. Energy of sound, Aim. Is a very important Shakti mantra, Bija sound. Lunar energy is Srim. Magnetic energy, energy that attracts, is Klim. Power to stop, Hlim. Power to transcend, Trim. I think Trim you also saw in the goddess Tara. So let's look a little more closely at these Bija mantras. Dr. Frawley tells us that the Bija mantras, they create, sustain, and dissolve different forms and patterns and forces within us. Okay, so that's important to really think about this. We all have thought patterns, emotional patterns that are in our memory bank, in our mind, but they also, those thought patterns and emotional patterns also manifest in our health, physical, mental, and emotional health. And so those are all different forms and patterns that are within us. And the power of the Bija mantra, of this sound vibration, can create, sustain, and dissolve those forms within us. Because again, we're talking about just the theory of fields, of vibrational fields, whether they're in harmony or dissonance. So understanding that, we can target these Bija sounds towards different locations in the body, such as their chakras. And so I'm sure a lot of you have done different chakra meditations or chakra mantra, japa, and that's what you were doing, right? You were targeting a certain sound vibration at a certain place in your body. Now, that kind of a practice can be done on 3 different levels: physical level, the pranic level, and the causal, because remember, chakras can manifest within the effect of the chakra, the effect of that energy is manifested on a physical level, the subtle energy level, and then even more refined and deeper at the causal. So as we bring this practice into play, mantra, we can also look at it. Okay, what are we hoping to get? Why are we choosing this mantra? So remember Artha, Kama, Dharma, and Moksha. So that's another way to look at it. Just when we looked at the goddesses, they had goals of, well, the goddess of speech is to win a debate, or is it to understand the vibration of speech and sound? So is it Artha, Kama, Dharma, or Moksha? So that's another way you can target your practice in the way you use mantra. You can also choose to energize your mantra in a sattvic quality, a rajasic, or a tamasic, because it's not that one is better than the other. These are all different qualities and they are useful in their place. Just like, for instance, the Muladhara chakra is characterized by the tamasic guna. Why? Because it's very stabilizing, centering, and grounding. So, for instance, let's say you have an excess of vata energy. So that vata energy, in very simplistic terms, can mean that you have a hard time staying centered, keeping one thought, staying focused. Then perhaps you would like to have more of a tamasic attitude towards your mantra japa to stabilize and center you. Let's say you happen to be a lethargic person, then you might want to have a rajasic attitude behind your mantra to bring you up to sattvic. So they're not good or bad, they're just ways, they're just different qualities. Okay, that just brings us right back to, depending on what your intention is behind the mantra bija sound, it will affect different levels of your consciousness, which of course is kind of what we were talking about in the different gunas. I gave an example here that when we meditate upon the goddess of speech, Matangi, to win a debate, We can say, yeah, that's on the gross physical level. I just wanted to debate, or perhaps we want to understand the energetics behind Om or one of the other sounds, the causal energy. So there's different ways to approach it. I think I said enough on that. So this is another way to look at mantra bija sounds in a little bit more detailed. So the long sound E, which is written as I, in English, the long I vowel is E, represents the primal sound of Shakti, of the divine goddess, of creation, of Mother Divine. The R sound, so the consonant R, like you see it in Harim, Harim, Shrim, that R sound denotes the sound vibration of fire, light, heaven, order, dharma, and it acts as a catalyst. It sets things in motion. That's what the R consonant does in a Shakti Bija mantra. The mantras that begin with H, such as Harim or Hum, they're representing prana, that subtle energy, light, sun. Sun, is also representative of true wisdom and knowledge, not just energy. Or light is knowledge over ignorance. L represents the seed of earth, water, joy, and bliss. So it has a very calming and stabilizing effect. And so here, to me, it's really easy to draw the correlation of Lam in the Muladhara chakra, right? So that's the L sound. Mantras that begin with S usually denote peace. They're Shanti mantras. And here we have the energy of the moon, which is to sustain, to preserve, to guide, to nurture. It also can represent the mind and the element of water. So these are ways to help you refine and delve deeper into how you use your mantra practice. And when you're looking at the Sri Yantra, what sounds you're making and harmonizing, just to give it a little more foundation. All right, let's look at each one of these Shakti mantras a little closer, even more closer. Om and Am, we've discussed. The A, U, we understand. Aim. This is the most commonly practiced Shakti mantra. It's the feminine version of Om. So remember, Om is unmanifest, right? Purusha, Shiva. Aim is the manifestation. So if there's manifestation, there's direction and form. I'm Om. It's interesting. If you just want to have a practice on doing Om and Aim and just feeling the different vibrations and sensations that you feel within yourself, that's a wonderful practice. Hreem. Hreem represents the goddess in the three forms: creation, preservation, and destruction. Remember, the Sri Yantra, the Shakti goddesses, it's all about that cycle of life, of creation, preservation, and destruction here. Hreem is also the specific mantra of the Hridaya, or the heart. Shreem now is the mantra of Lakshmi. She's known in as the Hindu deity of Lakshmi, and in Tantra, she is the goddess of Kamalatmika. So she's the goddess of abundance, of worldly wealth, but also spiritual wealth, the true wisdom that is where? In our heart. Halim, that is a sound vibration to help stabilize and sustain energies. Halim is also the energy of the Stambhana, part of Bagalamukhi. If you remember, she is also known as Stambhana in one of her qualities. So here we have the energy. If we want to sustain or stabilize a certain chakra, you might want to add Halim to your practice. Cream is the seed mantra of the goddess Kali. And then I think a lot of us, when we first started this workshop, we practiced that mantra. She is the goddess of time and transformation. And here we see that word again, Vidyut. She is the energy of Vidyut Shakti. That's lightning or electrical energy. That's the vibration to bring about change and transformation. Clean is a softer vibration with the same energetics, but a softer attitude than cream. So it attracts, but it's the mantra of love and bliss. And so what's interesting when you start looking at the goddesses, at these mantras, you see that there's almost paradoxical representations in one word. So cream can be electrical energy of transformation, and cream is attracting. You see how they can be related? And when we're thinking about love and bliss as part of change and transformation, because what are we changing and transforming to? To who we really are. Pure consciousness. And some of the attributes of pure consciousness is bliss. Stream and tream. So we've got the S sounds, the T, the R. So the S is helping to project the vibration of stability. And then the other sounds help to take that energy to not only encompass, but expand and direct and bring movement to. So stream is also the seed mantra of the goddess Tara. She's also, Om is also associated with the goddess Tara. So when you think about it, Om, it is encompassing within the infinity of space, within the infinity of time. It expands. There is direction, there is movement, and yet there's also complete stillness. So there's always a paradox here. Hum. Hum is a very important mantra within Tantra, along with Aum and Aim. It is known as a very fierce energetic vibration. So you'll see Hum in the mantra with goddess Kali and Chinnamasta. It's also the vibration, the energy sound for fire and transformation and to destroy obstacles. So when we say destroy obstacles, what are the obstacles to walking this spiritual path? It's us. Just get out of the way. When in tantric meditation, in yogic meditation, meditation is not so much to gain something as to identify and quiet those thought and emotional patterns that you have and quiet them so they're no longer distracting, so that you can realize and experience who you really are, that pure consciousness. Because when they're distracting us and they're running around in our mind, those built up thought patterns and emotional patterns and feelings and experiences, they're blocking the true vision of who we are, of experiencing who we truly are. So that's what they mean when they say destroy obstacles. I was doing last night I was looking at, for people who want to delve deeper into this, and Layla had a really good question yesterday when she asked, the workshop that we had, is that representative of everyone who studies the Sri Yantra or uses it as a practice or not? And I didn't really have a good answer for that. So I thought, let me think about it. So the Sri Yantra, the practice of the Sri Yantra is part of the Hindu philosophy of Kashmir Shaivism. So you can Google those words and that will take you deeper into Sri Yantra. Of course, the Tantric yoga that Dr. David Frawley talks about, I think is a really good starting point to understand what is Tantric yoga. Because he also bases his studies and his interpretations on tantric yogas, yogi practitioners. The Sri Vidya is a path of tantric yoga. Sri Vidya is the highest knowledge. So you might want to look that word up. The goddess Lalita or Tripura Sundari, she is the Sri Yantra. So understanding her, understanding all her properties and representations is another way to understand the Sri Yantra. This I found really interesting is I was, again, thinking about a teacher that Barbara and I met in Rishikesh, and he still has a profound influence on both of us, I think. But it was interesting because when we went there, his lineage is such that the very first day he said, you know, I'm not supposed to tell you anything. You can ask me questions, but I'm not supposed to just give you the information. And right away we're going, what? You know, what's he talking about? Why is there secrecy? Well, with the internet, there's really not a whole lot of secrecy anymore, as Shriyam showed us in one of his videos about the 16 syllable mantra for the Sri Yantra. But at any rate, that got me thinking about, okay, his name is Ganesan, our teacher. So, okay, what is the lineage of Ganesan? I know that his guru is Swami Rama. I said, but who is Swami Rama? Where does he come from? Who did he study from? So then I looked this up, the Himalayan tradition of yoga meditation, and here is one of the references. And the references goes right back to Swami Rama and the Sadhana Mandir, where Barbara and I were. He, in this website, talks about studying yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga, to clear the mind, prepare the mind, to study Sri Vidya, that is a lot of self-study, and then to study Tantra and the Sri Yantra. So that was the sort of the sequence or the timeline. And a lot of his videos, now when I look back on them, I start connecting the dots. I go, oh, yes, that's what he was talking about. But I hadn't realized that at the beginning because I didn't have the foundational understanding. But it's all there. So that's very interesting if you want to go down that path. And then I found another reference. This is more a folk story about the origins of the Sri Vidya. And you might be interested in looking at that. And so I'm done talking. So are there any questions that we'd like to share right now? I did send you all a WhatsApp thing on the Bhagavad Gita WhatsApp thing with some pictures from this book. And I sent you this a picture of this so you can get it yourselves. You guys, the more I read this book, the more I learn. And it's just amazing. If you look on your phone right now at the WhatsApp, I think it's the last picture I sent you, where it has, if they're talking about the Sri Yantra, and it has first phase, second phase, third phase. I'll let you see if you can find that. Okay. While you're looking for that, Azadeh, to your question, yes. Again, this is not my tradition, so I don't know, but he said it is very important that the last syllable, cream, should be held as long as, or twice as long as the first 5 syllables were uttered. Okay. I don't know what the energetics are of it. I just believe that he said it. The slides are available on Google Drive. I guess so. I think I sent you in the very beginning, I might have sent you some of the PowerPoint, but if not, since I added and edited a lot, I'm going to send it to you today and I'll figure out how to send it and give it to everybody. So you'll have.
Thank you, Corinne. I think at the beginning, one of the ladies was putting them up on the Google Drive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I still have all.
Leah.
Yeah, Leah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She couldn't come today. If I can figure out how to do it, I'll ask her to do it. But I think I understand how to do it.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So you all have that picture, right? Of first creation, or no, first phase, second phase, third phase. That was the last picture I sent on the WhatsApp. All right. Part of the reason why I didn't use this book as much in the workshop is because I don't understand all the words. So I just wanted to read to you some of it, because now with the last weeks behind you, you probably understand more than I do. So let's look at the first phase. In the cosmic cycle, no phase is absolute in itself, but each is a synthesis of opposite principles, with the apparent disequilibrium neutralized by the principle of unity. Then he goes on and on and on and on. Then he says another one, that they demonstrate the core nature of Shakti philosophy, which sees every aspect of life as a spectrum of paradoxes and its resolution. No element of nature, no process of life can ever be complete in itself. It must embrace an opposite to manifest itself and resolve its tension and contradictions by a third principle, unity. From this dimension, each phase of the cosmic cycle is complete in and itself and retains its cyclical continuity. Okay, that's the kind of stuff that I have to read like 10 times. But now that we understand some of the symbolism of the Sri Yantra and the goddesses, when we look at this picture of creation, preservation, and dissolution, we look at his references to the Bindu, the 8 triangles, the 10 triangle, and the 14 triangle chakra. It all connects. We start connecting the dots. So this book is really, really good. I hope you can get it. It doesn't only talk about Sri Yantras. It talks about all different kinds of yantras. And it also goes into the 3-dimensional. Let me see if I can just find it. It's so cool because there are sorry, you guys, I'm doing it like this. But see, there's 3-dimensional yantras like this too. And he gives really, really detailed explanations of how those 9 circuits of consciousness that we talked about yesterday, that you can understand and use it as part of your practice.
Corinne, can I ask a question about all of that?
Yes, of course.
Do you think like that people who have a language which is more connected to those sounds and which is more, I cannot say ancient, but is more like has a longer history than, for example, English, French, Dutch, that they, through their daily language or daily use of this language, they are able to stay more connected to the earth? Because sometimes I think like when I'm in Guinea with my partner, their language Susu is it's very like grammatically it's much more simpler than any kind of English or French, and they have like words which has a different intonation and the same word for different things, and the way they speak is it's less in sentences and more in like images kind of use. And they, I don't know, I think people who have a more basic language sometimes are more connected and more rooted than when the language is much more complex and in the head. And I remember reading a book of the Aboriginals in Australia who believe that the world has been sung into existence. So everything has its own song, like the rocks, the water, and they sing these songs like from generation to generation. So it's all about like you say, sound is creation, and I think it's a really interesting pathway that if you would research it, you would see it in a lot of ancient cultures like coming back, how they associate the sound with the physical reality as well. Like you say, the number 9, also in Maya, the culture, the Mayan culture in Middle America, they also have this 9 steps. Then the number 9 is also a very important number, and yeah, I think it's an interesting pathway to get
No,
lost.
I absolutely agree with you. I think language has so much to do with how we intuit the world around us and then relate to other people. And I think that I mean, I'm not a scholar about this, but I do think that the more language became more scientific, you might say, rather than intuitive, um, there was some loss. It was a little harder to find that spiritual harmonizing connection, as you say.
Yeah.
I know a little Malaysian, and it's really interesting because to do to make a word plural, they just say it twice. And I've studied Tagalog, Filipino, and that language, it's you feel good saying it. Like I'm a kakaasa ka sa pasintang malanghanggan. I mean, that's so cool to say. And you just feel all the different movements and air movements. And of course, Sanskrit. You know, one of the a meditation that I really love is just going through the alphabet in the parts of the body. Even in my imperfect pronunciation. And remember, Terry said, well, how important is it to pronounce correctly? I think if your attitude and intent is to do it to the best of your capability that day, that is a true intention, whether you make the mark or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Natalie. That was really beautiful. Thanks.
Well, how you explain it, I think, like because you were also talking about patterns, like emotional patterns, or I think linguistic patterns also can add to who you are or how you perceive yourself as a person. Like I was listening to a scholar about habits and how we become our habits. Like our identity is associated with the habits we do. For example, you know, you want to get more fit. It's not about getting out there and run, but it's about becoming a runner. Like when do you associate yourself with being a runner? It's like when you have this habit of going out every day and go to run. So it's like this this identity image as well of yourself as a person, as a culture, as yeah, like with the patterns in itself.
Well, that's nice. And especially, I mean, for you people who are multilingual, I'm sure you've experienced this too. That the power of language in that way. And I think Kieran said it yesterday that you don't try to meditate, you just do it. Right? It's not that you're trying, you are doing it. No matter whatever it is that you're doing, you are doing it, as you said.
So is it all right if I share something a little wacky? Okay.
Wacky is good.
This is the Hallett theory of the development or the evolution of language. That language became into being after gesture. Gesture was the first thing that we used to communicate. And then after gesture came language, came sounds that we made internally with our bodies. And I think it is significant. It's kind of glossed over every now and then when we say, oh, do you know that there are acupuncture points in the ears that connect to every part of the body? And we kind of throw that out there. But think about it a little bit. Sound is vibration. Ears are the senses of sound vibration. They pick up sound waves. And there are acupuncture points to every area of the body. So the effect of sound transmits how we are feeling. Emotion can be transmitted by a sound. This, I'm talking in a very basic way. I'm not talking about the year 2020 now. I'm talking about the year .+1. There came a time when we wanted to keep secrets from each other. We stopped being intuitive. We stopped being empathic because we wanted to keep secrets. When power, the power of ownership, the power of money, the power kingdoms, all of that manifestation of power. I'm stronger than you. I need what you have. I will take it from you. How can I protect myself? And we developed into these warring races. So our early history was yes, there was a time when it was quite serene, but then it developed into a very warlike experience. And at that time, language, as we understand it, with its grammar, with its multiplicity of vocabulary, came into being. And we started using words rather than sounds. I know that sounds a little oxymoron, but we started using words to express our meaning rather than using sound to express our meaning. And so languages became increasingly complex and increasingly glottal, increasingly hard. And our languages became increasingly big. And you cannot lie to someone if you are communicating with them empathically, because they're going to know you're lying. But you can lie your full head off. You can deceive people if you're just using words, if you're using formulaic words. So when you look now at diplomacy, when you look at contracts, when you look at the entire legal system, when you look at how we spend a huge amount in time interpreting what was meant by all these very complex sentence structures or the use of these words, we've actually moved further and further away from empathic, intuitive communication. We need to move back now, because the world as it is today is pretty much a fairly horrific manifestation of that decision that was made thousands of years ago. That's the Annette Hallett theory of where evolution went wrong.
Thank you, Annette. Thanks for sharing that. If you're interested in grammar and linguistics, Panini is the name of the guy who is a very, he is the renowned Sanskrit grammarian.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of years ago, and he developed the grammar for Sanskrit. So this is also very important in terms of when we look at Sanskrit as a sign language of sound vibrations and the way it is sequenced. It's a very mathematical formulae, which he intuited. That's what they say. So that's also another path you may want to go to, Panini.
Yeah, did you just as a foolish fact, some of you may know it, if you're Star Trek fans, you should know it. And I don't know if everyone knows who the Klingons and the Vulcans are in Star Trek. If you watch Star Trek, you'll know. But in the future, the Klingons are an incredibly warlike race. Everything is about honor. Everything is about dying glorious in battle. Everything is, I mean, and they eat horrible food and they talk about blood all the time. They have a really, really ugly language that was based on Sanskrit, which is a bit of a, a kind of a, hang on a minute. But actually it was, they needed to create the language of Klingon, which does actually exist, as does the Elvish language from Tolkien, actually exists. And it's based on linguistics from previous, or previous times, previous old languages that are no longer in common use. They've developed, they've evolved. But Elvish is a very beautiful language. It's a very peaceful language. But Klingon, that was actually based on Sanskrit, when you hear the Klingons speaking the language, it's very aggressive, it's very warlike, it's very Rajasic. And it's just an interesting thing that we play with language a lot, and we have a lot of language, but we don't always pay attention to it. We kind of take it for granted. But just remember, every time someone speaks to you, whether it's in English, or whether it's in Sanskrit, or whether it's in Elvish, or whether it's in any dialect, they will be affecting you on an emotional level in all parts of your body if your ears are working.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
Thank you,
be very
Annette.
careful
Yes.
with your words. Very careful with your
Yeah.
words. You know,
I
it's
really,
very important. Sorry.
I really appreciate Annette's reflection, and I think it is very meaningful, and it says a lot about the public intellectuals and the books that they write, the political pundits, and they may take a grain of truth and
Mhm.
redirect it their own intentions,
Mhm.
and then the common public, they don't have time, or they're already
Not aware.
persuaded in one thought pattern, and they just cling on to those beliefs and make it
Mm-hmm.
worse, and on and on. And I really believe that the gesturing, they don't tell lies. It's either or. And as Annette was talking, I remember coming across to this picture of see the Kong. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a group of a band of the Gui tribes in central Kalahari. And I thought it was very interesting with the gesturing. This man is actually including his head as a part of gesture. And I don't know if you can see it, but you see his head, hands, and he's indicating that there is a bird in the scene. See how?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is just beautiful. And
Wow.
they work together to hunt down their food. And I appreciate that, Annette. It's quite interesting what you said. And
It's
Yeah, thank you, Sharon.
it's a rabbit hole, but I spend a lot of time lurking in rabbit holes. But I do have a deeply held belief, for want of a better word, but it's based on an intellectual understanding of connecting the dots, that our words are and not just our words, but the words that we hear everywhere, have a much greater effect on us than we perhaps always are aware of. And that's why, you know, certain political figures in history and even in the current time are wreaking such havoc. They are disturbing so many people and creating so much mental illness in the world. It is the vibration of those words.
I think Terry also brought it up a couple sessions before, where she was saying about just through our own practice, and mantra can be part of that practice of bringing sound vibrations into the universe. We can help raise the level of consciousnus.
Absolutely.
Maybe not even raise is the right word, but bring it to a more peaceful harmony. And when we talk about, like I said, the Dalai Lama has come to Costa Rica a few times, and some of his monks. And my understanding is that some of their work is simply to do their practice. Like if you ever gone to some of the Tibetan monasteries and you see them chanting, it's a beautiful vibration you feel. Or I was in the, ¿cómo se llama? 1,000 Petal Temple in New Delhi. Oh my gosh, I went there when they were chanting. Incredible vibration. And I think we've all experienced that, whether it is in nature, in a church, in a temple, or in our own practice when we do mantra japa.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful harmonizing thing. And I think that's what you're saying with words.
Yeah, it is. It is an amazingly important practice that maybe we're not so aware of, because, hey, it's just words. You know, it's just words. Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words could never kill me.
Mm-hmm.
Is not actually an accurate statement.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been told that. And the horrible part of it is that words can be used to control you. Because some words do have this emotional charge to them. And I've heard people say, oh, well, that word just has an emotional charge for you. And they dismiss it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would ask us all after this course that we've been on with you to stop and think for a minute. Is it just an emotional charge? And is that to be dismissed, or is it to be thought about a little deeper? Is it to be explored a little further? Is it used to bring us to a higher level of awareness? It's great that you have taught us, and I truly appreciate everything that you have taught us, because it's clarified some things in my mind and things I don't know anything about, and I'm always looking for stuff, more information. But you have told us about the beauty of the sounds and the mantra and the beneficial effects of the mantra. So coming in from the dark side, everybody be aware of the negative aspects of your language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Be careful of the emotional charges of your words.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a stony path, and I'm not preaching now because I can't afford to. My mouth is one of the worst in the world, but it is that understanding that if I really want to hurt someone, I know what words to use to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the meaning of the words, it's the sound vibration of the words. It's the emotional charge of those words.
No.
And that came first.
No, thank you for that's a wonderful for us all to be mindful. And again, if you follow the yogic tradition, the yamas and the niyamas, I mean, that's one of the first things when you study yoga that we try to master, understand and experience and master, and then observe it throughout. And if you read any of the biographies of Sri M or Swami Rama or the autobiography of a yogi, one of the reoccurring themes that you see is just compassion and kindness. That if we haven't learned that in all our studies of the Vedas, of Tantra, whatever, then we haven't really progressed anywhere. Because as we search for that answer, who am I? If we want to walk that spiritual path, who am I? That doesn't mean you dismiss and forget about compassion and kindness to everyone else, because it's just like, I think in the Christian tradition, is it like do unto others as you would unto
Have them do unto you.
like that,
It's
right?
yeah.
It's the same
Every
thing.
single
If you
tradition has
realize
something like
that every person and everything in nature is divine, then why would you hurt them? So
Why
I
would you
think
hurt yourself?
Yeah.
So the understanding that every time you hurt someone else, you hurt yourself. And I think we see
Right,
that
exactly.
manifesting in the world all the time. All the time, every day.
Yes.
We're hurting other people, and as a result, we are hurting ourselves.
Yeah.
So we need to find a better way.
Yes.
Not me, I'm useless at it. I'm waiting for the next lifetime.
No. Thank you, Annette. No, thanks for sharing all that. So I really hope, I want to say, well, first, not I hope, I want to say thank you to all of you. I'm very grateful for everyone sharing their wisdom. I learned a lot, so thank you very much. I will do my best to get the information to you all out and to get your certificates. Well, I'm going to ride my sister to get the certificates out to everybody. That's her job.
Generous sister.
Yeah, my generous sister. Were there any other lingering questions about any of the material that you'd like to have clarified?
So where do you begin?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful workshop. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank
So
you
I wish
very
you all
much
well.
indeed.
And yeah, for those who are continuing with the practice with Kieran, I'll see you then.
Yeah.
So shall we share the pranava one time?
Yes. Maya, kom
And
zingen.
breathe in. Shanti, shanti,
Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you very much, Corinne. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Corinne.